Hey everyone, I'm Lisa Campion, and this is the Psychic Stories, where we get together and we talk about psychic stories. And I love this conversation because I think a lot of times, as humans, we have psychic experiences we don't talk about, and my intention with this type of conversation is to just open the field for everyone to talk about their psychic experiences so we can really share to normalize the conversation. And I have today Lydia Dustin. She's one of my besties. In fact, she is a psychic bestie. She is your psychic bestie, the psychic bestie you always wish you had. The one you want to call when stuff goes down and you're like, I want to talk to my best friend who's also a psychic. That's Lydia. So welcome to the show again, Lydia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how your psychic experiences, how you knew you were psychic. Like, how did you first know you were psychic?
When I was a little girl, I used to have dreams that would come true. And in the dreams, it would feel like I was there, like I would wake up and be surprised that I was sleeping. And then later, I would just be living my life. And all of a sudden, the dream would unfold like in real time. And I realized was like, I had predicted like what was actually happening. And I remember just being like, that's like magic. Like it's magic. And I remember telling my mom, be like, Mom, I think it was a birthday party. Mom, I dreamt exactly how this birthday party was going to go. And she was like, Oh, yeah, dear. Like every kid dreams about the birthday. And I was like, No, like I legitimately, but they just thought I was, telling stories and telling tall tales.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me too when I was a kid. Is my parents told my mom. I mean, they weren't like horribly against my experiences. You know, like some parents like drag their kid to the church and throw holy water on them. Like my parents didn't do that because they were hippies, but thank God. But they were like, oh, my mom was like, it's like, oh, you have such a good imagination. You know, like that's your imagination. I was always told I had a great imagination, and so it was sort of a struggle for me at some point till I was like, am I making this all up? Like, am I imagining this? You know, what I was experiencing. For me, it wasn't in dreams. It was happening. It was like I was just perceiving things in the environment that other people couldn't see. Like the people in my room, you know, at night, I called them the gray
So
people.
scary. It's so scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were just dead people. And I didn't know what they were. Sort of, I figured it out eventually. And I was never really scared of them so much, but I was like, am I making up the great people or are they really there? And then I just knew they were there because they would talk to me and tell me what their stories were.
I remember being just like terrified of like certain places we go or like certain strangers. I would
Mhm.
just be like, no, like I don't like them. And be like, no, yes, you do. Go give them a hug. Yes, you do. And I just be like they act nice, but they're mean. Like I could always see through adults, but I had to be polite, which is hard for kids. Like I could always tell. Like I'm like, they don't like me. Like they don't, they're not happy I'm here.
Mm. Yeah, I know. I get that. I used to hate doing sleepovers because I love the idea of the sleepover. But I was one of those kids that would cry and make my parents come pick me up at like 10
Yeah.
o'clock at night because there would be like in the night there would be like weird energy would come out in the house of and I never really knew if it was the weird energy of the people or that like the house is haunted, but I would have a really hard time at sleepovers when I was a kid. And it's so funny because now whenever I go somewhere, I have to clear the space or I can't sleep. You know, so I bring my little mini space clearing set and I clear like Airbnbs, hotels, even other people's houses before I don't, because I just feel like there's a lot of sort of stagnant energy or ghosts or stuck, like weird, stuck
Yeah.
leftover human energy. Yeah, I was really aware of that as a kid.
Yeah, seriously. And I do that as well. I'll bring Florida water, but I dilute it so it doesn't smell very bad. And I just like, yeah, just like you want to holy water, sure. Florida water, holy water, and then to make it less it's less stinky, but you can buy it online. It's like the best.
Yeah, yeah. And what else? Like, so nowadays, what are your psychic experiences like?
Um, so uh nowadays I'm the person they call when there's something up in the house. In my town, I'm like the secret ghost whisperer. Like I don't advertise, but like people, friends of friends will like call me and I'll just kind of go over to see what's happening. And what is the best part about that is that half the time they really think they're making it up. And like
Mm.
it's like they know something's going on, but it just seems impossible because these, your traditional people really are going to question whether there's a ghost in their house or an energy. So I love to be able to go over um, and tell them that it's validated, there is something, they're not making it up. But usually I start with a photograph. I'm just like, send me like, or tell me your address. I'll look on Google Earth and like look at your house. And um, and sometimes it's like you look at the picture, you're just like, oh my God, how do they live in that house? But your psychic bestie keeps it positive and like we never tell them how horrible the energy is and we don't want to scare them and we just go and we help out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. I did house clearings for a long time, and I did them. It was sort of in the 90s, like I, I don't know, early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And back then nobody was doing that
You're
stuff.
the
Nobody was
OG. OG
talking about it.
cool.
I know, it was like the OG. No paranormal TV shows, nothing like that yet, right? So I got into it because my friend was a realtor and she was like, um, I can't sell this house. I don't know why. It's a beautiful house. People come in and they leave and they don't like it. And it's had like, people stay a year and then put the house on the market again. And it was like kind of a newer house in a really swanky neighborhood, And she's like, what? It wasn't like a super old house. She's like, can you come over and clear it? And so I was like, sure. I'm like, well, I don't know, like what? Why not? I can do that. And oh my God, I had no idea what I was doing. What a nightmare. I made every mistake in the book. Like, don't go alone. Don't go like I was just like, la la la, like yeah, I can do this. And oh boy, it was rough. There was just something stuck in the basement. It was really gnarly. It took a long time to get out of it. I had to clear it in layers because I would go and like clear out like the residual energy that was there, the human leftover human goo, and then I had to clear the basement, and then I had to clear the garage, and I had to clear the shed, and I don't know. It finally I did, and I got really sick, and then whatever was there followed me home. It was like
Right, of
the
course.
it was like the what not to do, like what not to
Right,
do
you're
list.
like this delicious
Um,
little psychic kid. Like, of course they're gonna like
like
follow
la la
along.
la, like I don't know, and and yeah, so no, I don't do it anymore, but I did it for about 10 years. It was a really good education for me, and I learned how to do it properly. You go with a team, you have really good psychic self-defense. You kind of buckle up because like nobody asks you to their house because the energy feels really great over there. I mean, maybe they do, but not for a clearing. Um,
Exactly.
that that so I learned so much, and that's kind of like um like I could say that for all of the aspects of my life as a psychic, that I was just figuring it out the hard way
Me too. Me too.
from the beginning.
Yeah. Or like in the when I like there's a point if people don't know, like when you like I had suppressed my psychic abilities and when you pop open and it's like you have no skin, you're just like this like raw nerve
Yep.
of psychicness. And I remember going out with my family to Rhode Island. I can't think of the name. It is one of those little old towns, Rhode Island, and we walked down this alleyway and I literally had like a vision of like being in a slave ship and I like almost passed out and it was like crazy. It turned out that the building was made of these stones that had come from Africa with the slaves like in the ship and I was just like universe, I am like on a lovely day with my family and children. I'm like you get like these crazy psychic jumped, but that doesn't happen
Yeah.
anymore. But it's just
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that is nuts. I mean, when I was like younger and sort of undefended, I would I would walk down the street and the creepiest house in the neighborhood would be like, Lisa, come in here. We're waiting for you.
Right? Or sort or driving. I don't know if you do this. If I like zone out and I'm driving, sometimes I'll like get off course and I'll feel like I'm being almost pulled somewhere and I'm like, no, 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 not no. Like I'm not going to see you today. It's like crazy. It's so
Yeah,
crazy.
so funny. And when I'm tired, like I work really hard on like keeping my boundaries up, you know. So I go out pretty when I'm out and about in the world, I'm pretty like buckled up. And it's what if I'm on vacation and I get really relaxed or I get tired, that sort of slips. And I was visiting my son up in Maine. I'm gonna tell you, Maine's pretty haunted. I can see why Stephen King thinks that's a creepy ass place because there are some really creepy spots in Maine. And I was driving past the cemetery and there were all these people standing in the cemetery. And I'm like, is there a funeral going on there? And I'm like, oh, those people are dressed in like old timey clothes, like, you know? And it was like this whole family with like the blank eyes, like the big black blank eyes, like staring. And I was like, oh shit, there's some really bad stuff that's going on there. So later on, I just was like, okay, I'm driving. And then later on, I went back there and because I don't always do this, but sometimes I feel like my guides tap me on the shoulder and say, community service project for you. Like it'd be really great if you could clean this up. Um, and they were like, hey, there's not too many people in this neck of the woods that do what you do.
Hey, good
And
point.
like these people have been stuck here since like 1880. And if you
They've
can
been
help
at
them
that
move on,
funeral
like,
a long time.
yeah, it'd be really kind, like, do you have a minute for some kindness? And so I went back later and did like a whole clearing for them. It was pretty bad. But yeah. I always say clearing ghosts is a lot like doing therapy because they don't,
Yes.
pay your office your fee or keep your office hours, but that's sort of how I experience it because they want to tell you like, oh my God, this is what happened to us. And that's why that the heaviness of their unprocessed trauma sort of holds them to the place. Right.
Yeah. And it's like you want to help them because like who else is going to help them? Like they'll just be here.
Right.
Um, definitely.
Yeah. I'm super fascinated by one of your gifts, Lydia, that is kind of an unusual gift, and that's psychometry. The ability to pick things up and hold things and get information from holding them. And Lydia
Mm.
is super talented at that. And of course, ironically, worked with antiques for a lot of her, life
Yeah.
as an adult. And antique stores, like, I'm like, well, I'm out. Like I can only hang so much in the antique store before I'm like, there's something weird in the antique store. But you love that, and
Love it.
you're really good at being able to like feel what's going on with something that maybe somebody wore. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's like for you?
Oh, I love it so much. And it's funny because I think I love antique shops because there's so many people with such good energy. And it's like I feel it's like I meet new friends. But so what happens, my favorite is when someone comes to see me and they have like a ring or something, like a wedding ring. So that person wore that at least probably 20, sometimes 40, sometimes 40 years. And so what I do is when I put it on, I literally feel like that person. So it's like I put it on, I'll feel their energy kind of coursing through my body, and I'll feel like um I'll say like, oh, so I feel like I'm a man, but like I'm not a manly man, I'm a sensitive man. Oh, I'm really funny. Oh my gosh, like I play practical jokes and like I just start to feel them. And sometimes if it's really strong, I'll like see them, I'll see how they're dressed. And it's just kind of wild. Like it's a really wild experience. But but it's so cool because all of our
And
energy is transformed onto that object if we wear it.
and do you feel like in that case that's like residual energy that you're picking up the energy of the person
Mhm.
that owned that, and that's different than a haunted object, right? Where there's a stuck
Yes,
spirit attached to it.
right. So I always think of it as like it's almost like a recording. It's like a cassette tape. If you're that old to remember this recording, like of the person, like I can feel them, but I'm not like talking to them. We're not like engaging. But if an object's haunted, first of all, if an object's haunted, it like hits me in the chest and I want to throw up like if it's bad. But that is more the energy of the person is attached to the object. And they're usually like
Right.
angry because like the object was is being mishandled. And usually they had a plan for the object and it went to like the wrong person or people or They just don't. They are very unhappy with the placement of that object, and they just can't let it go.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just feel like it's funny for a lay person. I think they would just like hate the object. They would just be like, I don't like it. Like, I don't know why. Like, they might think they hate the color or the shape, but they usually just feel like that, like hair on the back of your neck feeling, just like
Right.
creepy because it's unnatural
Yeah.
to have like live, peoply energy on an object.
Yeah. I mean that, there's a difference between um that residual energy that's just like the leftover, you know, like you said, like a recording of that person,
Yeah.
and actually a trapped, stuck spirit. The trapped, stuck spirit, which would be haunting something, is a problem that's we feel uncomfortable about because that, ghosts are like, you and I have talked about this before a bunch of times, but ghosts are not like they're human beings who have
Mhm.
problems and need help. They're not like zoo animals or, like we're um, you know, um can like poke or be like, look, like, I think we need
Right.
to help them, cross them over and
Exactly.
resolve their issues, right?
And usually they'll tell you, like, like this. Oh my gosh, the hutch. There was a haunted hutch, like in this like thrift store. And people kept like getting hurt. Like, it's just so funny. They were like people that worked there, like if they touched it, they would like just kept like tripping or getting like hurt near it. It was weird. But it was like this hut that was like handmade by one of the members of the family, like an ancestor. And this woman was so livid because it was supposed to go to so and so. They didn't want it, and they donated it to the thrift store. She was so mad that we had to like process, and like
Wow.
therapy for her energy to get out of this stupid hutch. Like,
Yeah.
it's just crazy how attached people get to things. It's like a piece of
Yeah.
furniture. Your internal soul is going to spend forever in a used furniture store. No, thank you.
I know. And
Crazy.
sometimes things can become like a container almost for a person. Like we think about haunted dolls or haunted toys or things, like that those lost and wandering spirits um need a place to live. It's sort of, I think about like a hermit crab, right? Like walks around
Exactly.
and finds like a little shell to like live in for a little while, and that sometimes those haunted objects, and that I had one of my students collecting haunted objects because she really felt like she was had this misconception that she could speak to her spirit guides that way.
Oh,
And I had
huh.
to really like explain to her, like, spirit guides are not ghosts. Anything that's haunted is the spirit of a human who's like stuck here. They didn't complete their transition. They're sort of in the in between. They're they're not in good shape. They don't make good advisors.
Oh,
They're kind of crazy. Like they need help.
yeah,
They need our help. They're not in a position to help us, ghosts, right? And then
absolutely
that's
not.
totally different than a spirit guide, which is, there's all different kinds of spirit guides, angels, maybe ancestor spirits, ascended masters. There's a whole host of spirit guides. Their job is to help humanity, but you're not going to get a spirit guide if you get a haunted object.
Absolutely not. And
Yeah,
just the fact, like, that depends on how long they've been in the object. Like, they're just going to get more crazy and kind of
yeah, they do get
unevolved. And
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that has been so go. I in this jag where when I go to like haunted houses, the ghosts will like poof, and people ask, they're like, where do they go? And I'm like, ghosts don't have a body. They just have to make an intention of where they want to be, and they go poof. It's very convenient, but
They don't have to get on the train or have to call an Uber. They're
exactly. Just
so
and they can
yeah,
poof like anywhere. And when they figure that
yeah.
out, then they're gonna visit everybody and be all of it, everything. But
Mm. I think we get so many misconceptions about psychics and the ghosts and spirits and paranormal from watching paranormal TV shows, from watching horror movies, and I got a lot of my early education as a psychic by watching horror movies. And it all started when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13, and I went to see the movie Poltergeist because that
oh
I
my
was searching for
gosh.
information. I was like looking through the library and like trying to get information on what the kinds of things I
Right.
was experiencing. So then I go to see this movie. There's a psychic, like Zelda, the professional psychic, and I was like, this is so funny. And I was like, oh my God, you can do that. You can be a professional psychic. I'm gonna do that. That's what I'm gonna do. I decided in that moment. That's what. And she gives this little speech about. It's like a sentence or two about what ghosts are, why they get stuck, and how we cross them over. And I was like, oh my God, like somebody knows something. And I was like ate that up. And then I went to every single horror movie after that, trying to
You
like
have to
every
take
ghost
some notes.
story.
Take some notes on
Mhm.
how to.
Yeah, and I got kind of a very bizarre metaphysical education. I mean, this was in the 70s, you
Yeah,
know, and before even the New Age happened. The New
omen.
Age
Creepy.
happened when I was in college in the 80s, and then all of a sudden there was information. But before that, there really wasn't anything. No internet, no books in the library, nothing. And I think I got like 50% of what I learned was accurate, and the other 50% was like Hollywood crazy silliness, So, and I think there's still quite a lot of the movies haven't changed much. They're still like 50%
Yeah,
accurate, 50% Hollywood silliness. So I think we can get really quite a lot of misinformation if we're
a lot.
learning our psychic skills from movies and paranormal TV and stuff like that. Don't you think there's a lot of misconceptions there?
Oh, definitely. And the way the paranormal TV like treats these ghosts like they're like animals when they're just people. And the day some of those I don't watch them because they make me crazy because I'm a mother. But like when they go in these horrifically terrifying haunted places and like lock themselves in at night, I'm just like, do they want to get killed? Do they want to get sick? Like, why would they do that? It can be very
I
dangerous.
I think there's two things. Like it's a little bit like I feel like not really believing in sharks. Like you want to believe in sharks, but you don't. So you chum the water and then jump in to see if sharks are real.
Right. It makes no
You
sense.
know? Yeah. And then I think some of it is like, well, ghost hunting is actually pretty boring, and TV shows don't like boring, so they have to do like extreme, like run screaming from the room and be like, and that there are some really good ones I think that actually have the right vibe and are trying to help people. Um, help the spirits that live there that have respect. Like I like kindred spirits because they have respect for the living and the dead. Um, and that kind of idea that we don't treat spirits as if they're like circus animals.
Right.
Um, yeah. So, and some of them are, so I guess the point of what I'm trying to say is don't get your paranormal education, don't get your spiritual education from TV and media because you're not going to get an accurate or TikTok. Like TikTok,
Oh my gosh.
I love that there's so much conversation about this on TikTok, but please do not let TikTok be your only source of knowledge.
No, no, no. So I learned how to I don't consider myself a medium, but when I realized I could talk to the dead, I started watching the Long Island Medium. And then I would literally go up to people in Dunkin' Donuts and be like, so your dead father's here. And like I would ambush them because like that's what I thought you were supposed to do. Cause like if you got the information like Teresa Caputo, you would like tell the people. And
Yeah.
that, oh my gosh, I remember I told you and you were just like, no, like why?
I was like, hold
Wait,
up.
wait, stop.
No psychic hit and runs.
I know.
Yeah.
I was like the hit and run queen for a little while there. It's like the
I think
worst.
that happens to people because they get so excited, that they can do it and they really want to help. And they're watching paranormal TV, and that's what it seems like. But of course, in the Long Island medium, what really happened is that they rehearsed that, and that person signed 15 million pages of waivers before that and
Right.
consent forms. Consent was had, whether or not you see it on TV. And that's what we really need to do is get consent. Like I've got mostly I have like a don't ask, don't tell policy. Like I'm
Absolutely.
quiet, unless you ask me directly, and even then I might not say something. Unless you're in a session with me, like then that's different. But um, like I think the polite thing to do is say, "Well, I had a dream about you the other night," or "I was, I feel like maybe there's somebody who has a message for you. Do you want to hear it?" We don't assume, right? We don't assume. We give
Oh my
people the
God.
chance to say no to that because we
Yeah.
we don't want to assume that everybody wants to talk to their dead relatives. What
Right.
if that's
And
not your jam?
Right. And what I do is I'll say, "Oh, so, you know what I do for a living. Would you ever like want a reading?" And like if they're like, "Absolutely not. That freaks me out," or, "Well, that's not Christian," whatever they say, I'm just like, "Oh, okay." And I'm just like move right along.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So we need to, constantly um give people the opportunity to not go there.
Right.
And
Because it's
certainly
a
not
very strong
it's
boundary.
a pri
Yes.
it's a privacy. People have a right to privacy. And the more we open our psychic ability, the more we have to be respectful, I think, of people's right.
Exactly. And especially even for people that are empaths, like if someone says they're fine and they're not fine, like you can say again, "Are you sure you're okay?" And if they say yes, then you're like, that's it. Like you have to respect
Yeah.
that and know that.
Ethics is so important. It's just like I not enough people are talking about it. Like what how do we behave ethically and with the information. And the more information we have and the more we open, the more important it is to have that conversation.
Definitely, definitely. Oh,
So tell us, Lydia, about this. You've got a new gig, um, doing the lipstick readings. Tell us more about that.
so, lipstick readings, it is just a form of psychometry. So what I do is I bring lipsticks and people put them on and they kiss a card. Then when I hold the card, I basically just feel like how they feel in their body. And I can just see um just kind of things about them. Like or like I can just tell what their personality is like. Or some of it's really fun too because I could see like, oh, like they need help grounding, or oh, they're always on like they're always thinking and maybe they need to have more fun, or they need to have more spirituality. And it's like wild at how their lipstick makes a mark that actually correlates with like how they are and what their personality is. It's like bananas, but it's super fun. And we need fun. I'm like, we need like, I think it's like a great psychic entranceway because it's like fun and easy and it's like cash, it's not like deep like people's dead relatives, you know?
Yeah, and you are sort of the ambassador for a makeup company who's doing that. Tell us more about that too.
Um, well, I am working on a secret project with a cosmetics company store. And it's hope we're going to be working on it this summer. And I think I'm allowed to say that I will be getting live lipstick readings at some of their stores this summer. And they really embrace this kind of stuff. They're a really cool company. Actually, the whole Estee Lauder brand is still a family-run company, and they're like really, really nice and cool.
Mm, cool. So we will look forward to hearing more about the lipstick readings. The other thing that Lydia, that I think you do that's super cool that I don't really know any other psychics that do that is the photograph reading. So, if you have a photograph, you can give it to Lydia, and
Ah,
she'll read the photo. She looks into the person's eyes and she'll tell you all about, what's going on. And I've done that a few. I'm like, I'm dating this, I'm thinking about dating this person. What do you think? And she'll be like, no, no, look at the crazy eye over there or whatever. Like,
look at it's a
so tell us more about that how you do that.
So I have no idea how I do that. I've always done it my whole life. As a little kid, I would just like, I know it's like I can just see into who people really are. Cause like most of us have like, we have a personality or a persona, it's like if we're in a crappy mood, we're going to pretend to be friendly because, we're like appropriate adults. But I see like underneath all that into who people really are. And, and I to do that, I look deeply into their eyes, which is super uncomfortable in person and like creepy. And I'm just like staring at you. I had them take a selfie and I read the selfie and they were like safely, away from me. So I'm not
Right.
glaring at them. But it's just really cool. And for you guys, this eye, your right eye is your personality eye. So that's the eye that you can like make it look cute, like however you want to act. But your left eye always looks the same. And as human beings, we always look at each other's right eye. And it just I don't know why. But now that I said it, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I do always look at everybody's right eye. But look at the left, because that's where all the good stuff is.
And what do you see in the left eye? Like who they really are? beyond the
Right.
facade.
Yeah, like I can see that their energy, like if it does it come out at me? Is it like stuck like overthinking? Is it stuck kind of making stuff up? Is it I can see if people have clairvoyance because it looks like the energy is going past me into the soul plane. I can see too kind of like I from the way their energy comes out of their eye, I can tell like if they have confidence, if they're insecure, if yeah, if they're like a balanced, like energy balanced person or what they're struggling with and what their stuck points are, because it's so hard because like you're with yourself all the time. So like you don't know how you are, you're you. But it's helpful to have someone else look at you. So then I can help them see kind of the stuff they don't see about themselves.
Mm, so cool. And it is something that you do, like one of the psychic readings that you offer. So isn't that right that you do that? That you, if people wanted you to
Yeah,
try it, they can get you to do that.
definitely. Like when people come for sessions, we always look at pictures. Or I also do a lot of party entertaining. And it's funny, it used to be mostly tarot cards, but now it's mostly reading people's energy and like reading photographs and stuff. Cause that's just like, it's like so fun. And I did this prom and it was so funny. These big football guys were like, oh, is this psychic thing just crap? And I just started like reading them. And oh my God, and they were like so in. They were just like, get Charlie, he has to get ready, get Billy. Like, and it's just something fun, Because like everybody, it's like everyone just needs to be seen and validated for who they really are because people are freaking awesome.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So you do parties, graduation parties, psychic reading parties, sort of big gala events.
Big
Sometimes you
gala
work with
events.
celebs and famous people.
Yeah, I do it all. Lipstick reading has been like super fun for like showers or like bridal bachelorettes, like super fun. But yeah, I am definitely like extroverted. I'm the opposite of my sweet Lisa. I'm like, I want to be at your party talking to 100 people. Like I love it. And it's super, that's why I'm your psychic bestie. It's like super fun, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's totally true. All right. So, and if people wanted to get in touch with you, Lydia, how would they do that?
Yeah. So my website is lydiadustin.com and I'm Lydia Dustin on Instagram and Facebook. Try to keep it pretty simple.
Mm, cool. Awesome. So if you want a reading with Lydia, get one. It's super cool. And she is your psychic
Yeah.
bestie. Let's finish out this conversation by sharing some one more psychic story. So do you have like a extreme psychic story, one that was either amazing or beautiful or scary that you can share with us? And I'll
Yeah.
share one too.
There is like a list of things you can do, or I guess a list of things you should never do. But if you like guarantee you want a haunted house, like I went to this house. I called it the horror movie house because like I'm driving there and like I passed by this like nasty, dilapidated, like haunted mill. And I was like, oh my gosh, like all these row houses are like old mill housing, totally haunted. I missed their house, turn around in the parking lot of what looks like a haunted, like Catholic school. And I was just like, oh, I was like, oh God. I was like, it looks like a Charles Dickens novel. Like, how is this right near their house? And I get to their house. I don't want to get out of the car. Their energy of the house feels so bad. But I promised. Then they came out and they saw me because I was literally going to try to leave. And I went in their house and the energy was so awful. And it was filled with like taxidermy and like haunted objects and like real life skulls and things in jars. And then we went in the backyard and I was like, this is so weird. I feel like I'm like up to my chest in the earth. They were like, oh, yeah, there's graves back here. I was like, there are graves in the backyard. And the guy grew up there. He was like, yeah, in the 80s, we removed all this like big bushes, and my dad found them back there and just threw the headstones like, in the lawn pile. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm like, they need to just burn down this house and just like move away. It was awful. Like everything was like antiques, like dead things, graves, seven. It's like, oh my God. And I looked up that building because it was so awful. I looked it up and it was a Catholic school now, but it used to be a Catholic orphanage back in the day. And I was like, it's like,
Mm.
are you crazy? It was so bad. It was so good. It was so bad. But
Did you work on it?
I tried, but it's just too much. Like you talk about layers.
Yeah.
It was like you have the haunted mill, you have the haunted orphanage, you have the dilapidated graves. Like it was just I couldn't remove all the
Oh.
layers. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar story. So my house, I had a house, an old one. It was built in 1816. And yeah,
In
it was in Milford, Massachusetts, 1816. And it was one of the house, it was sort of famous because it was a stop on the Underground Railway. And there had been a barn in the backyard that had all these hidden rooms, and the barn was gone, and all there was a hole in the ground where the barn used to be. The barn had fallen in itself, and it was so haunted, and I couldn't clear it. And one of my kids like slept in my room for like until we moved out because he was too sensitive and he couldn't handle that. I could never clear it, and I knew that there were graves in the backyard because same thing, graves in the backyard. And because back then people would have family plots, there wasn't, and on top of it, there was like a little stream, and then behind that was the town cemetery, the old town cemetery. Um, and
oh,
I know I could never clear that house. And then the town came through with they wanted to put the sewer line and connect us to the sewer, and they were gonna like, we're gonna plow through this part of your yard. It was on a slope, and we're gonna plow through that and put in the sewer. And I'm like, you can't. I'm like, you can't plow through that. There's an old cemetery. There's an old cemetery there. And they were
ew.
like, no, there isn't. It's not on our map. It's not. There's not. That's not a thing. And I was told them. And then so what do? They get the bulldozers in there, and they plow through it. And there's all these old graves there. And then
God.
and they tumble through. They like all these old bones tumble out and everything. And then after that, and my dog brings one up on the
Oh,
porch and everything.
it cannot. It cannot. Oh my God. Oh
God, would
my
rain, and like water would wash off the slope, and like more came. And then I'd have to call them. I'd be like, yeah, there's more bones in my
God.
they collect them, and I don't know what they did with them. They put them over there on the in the cemetery side of things, and I had to move because I just couldn't. It was like got crazy haunted in my house. And so I just was like, the only thing to do is move. So I moved.
You like
No,
live.
that's
That's like a horror movie. That's like someone should write that shit up. Part of my language, but like that's how these horror movies start. And then the ghosts are like in your house, your kids, and like,
yeah, I know, in my house and with the kids, and that was
oh
a
my God,
really haunted house. Yeah.
you can't do
So
that. Like,
finally I
what?
just had to move. I had to just do a clean slate. I couldn't fix it.
But who are these people that like plow up a like?
There was no they were like, they didn't believe me. I'm like, well, how do you know there's unmarked graves there? And I'm like, I couldn't really say, well, because I'm a psychic and they told me.
Yeah,
I
like what?
they're looking at the the earth, the town plan, and it's not there. And then afterwards they were like, the guy was there, he's like, well, I guess we should have listened to you. How did you know that? And I don't know. I'm like, check please. I'm leaving town.
Oh my gosh,
So yeah, that was
that is
crazy.
like the when you're talking about the energy of it, like, oh my, oh,
Yeah, that house was
live
bad.
through
Plus,
that.
so there was the
Oh,
family that was the Claflin house, and the William Claflin went on to be one of the governors of Massachusetts. So the house was on the historic register. But I think also what was going on there was that there's the Claflin family um graves that had before, that were people just would set up
yeah,
we live in New England, so the houses are old, and sometimes they have private cemeteries, right? And that was the same
absolutely.
thing that I saw in Maine, actually, when I was driving. That story we started out with when I was driving through Maine to visit my son, and it was the same thing. It was like an old, and back then, what would happen is the headstones were made of wood or they were made of slate,
Right.
and
Yeah,
they were gone. And then once
exactly.
they were gone, and you know, um, yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
So that's where that. Oh, the other, because I think there were extra bodies in there from the slaves. I think that
That's what I was
because it was the
feeling.
underground railway that was going on, and I don't know what all happened there, but there were. there were some unaccounted people in those graves, and I think they had to do with the Underground Railway.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's one of the things that really stands out, especially around where we live, where it's people have been here since the 1600s, but there's no graves of slaves. And that's because they had the wooden markers probably on the property and those rot away and
Yeah,
now they're just in the ground. And people wonder why their
yeah.
subdivision is haunted. Like, there's like people here. Sorry.
People have been
It
here a
just,
long time. Yeah,
yeah,
and then of course all the Native American stuff too, because
exactly.
people have been here a really long time, and it wasn't, a peaceful transition between the First Nation and the white people that came here. Yeah, I know it's so interesting, and we don't talk too much about slavery up here in the north, but I live in the coastal Rhode Island now, and the town next to where I live was one of the big slave centers here.
Yeah. And so
New Bedford, Fall River. There was a lot of slave.
exactly.
Yeah,
It and it's so again, it's so convenient. We're like, we're from the north, but like there, but we all everybody had slaves. And it's not in our
yeah,
history books and we can't find their graves anywhere. It's like, but we know in coastal Rhode
mm,
Island, I read this thing that where there was a big slave trade after they abolished slavery, where this guy from Rhode Island would take a slave boat out, like take it out and then trade the slaves for sugar in Cuba and then come back with like the goods. So he was like doing undercover slavery. And he's the guy that brought those stones that were in
yeah.
yeah,
I know. And all these cute little towns in Rhode Island, there some of them have tough pasts.
they do.
The whaling and piracy. There's a lot of piracy in Rhode Island too. Pirates. There were pirates here
Oh,
quite a bit.
yeah.
Oh wow.
Very
All right. Well, thank
salty
you.
up in here.
I know it's very salty up in here. So, thank you so much for this conversation. Um, and I hope we can have you back. We should come back again and talk about the Conjuring House, which is also in Rhode Island, right? And
Yeah. Oh
all
my
of that.
gosh. Definitely.
Yeah,
There's
let's
so
do it.
much we
Let's
should
do
do.
that. Let's bookmark that in our next conversation. We'll talk about the Conjuring House. Well, thank you so much, Lydia. Good luck with
Yeah.
your lipstick reading and
Thank
all that
you.
you're doing. And we'll come back soon for more psychic stories.
It's nice.